Questions galore going into the NFL season. One of the unexpected questions is, should private equity firms be allowed to have an ownership stake in an NFL franchise? Other questions include, which NFL rookie quarterbacks are going to have the best year? And is CJ Stroud or Jordan Love going to have a better time in year two? Russ Landy joins us to answer all those questions and more, plus a big announcement at the end of the show, so don't miss it. That and more coming up on Sports Talk with Dad right now. Welcome back to another amazing episode of Sports Talk with Dad. As always, my name is Kyle, and I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who is quickly learning that life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it goes.
It does go faster.
You know what can solve, I bet you, not only the toilet paper issue, because it does solve the toilet paper issue, but I bet you it even makes your life better. Investing in a bidet.
You have a bidet, I take it.
I have several. I have one for each toilet, and it is the greatest investment I've ever made. I save so much money on toilet paper. It's insane.
Oh, you were going to say I spend so much time in there.
Well, that's a story for a different day. I'm telling you, because think about it this way, right? You have something on your face. You don't just get a thin piece of paper to clean it off, right? You wash your face. So why would you treat your bottom any differently? Honestly, that was a quote in Deadpool from the first Deadpool movie, and that quote changed my life. I never thought about it the same way again, and I'm like, I'm getting a bidet. Greatest invention ever. God bless the Japanese. You need to get one. I'm telling you, it'll change your life.
I'm going to bring it back I'm going to bring it back to sports for just a moment.
Fine.
This happened in 1968.
Okay. Bob Gibson year, right?
Bob Gibson year.
All right.
Happened in June and July.
Okay.
One pitcher.
Yeah.
12 starts.
Okay.
12 complete games.
Wow.
12-0 record. 108 innings. 63 hits he gave up. 16 walks. 91 strikeouts.
Wow.
Gave up one home run. And his ERA was 0.50.
0.5?
0.5. And that pitcher would be, of course,
Bob Gibson.
Bob Gibson.
Because didn't he finish with like a 1.02 ERA that year?
Something obscene like that.
I mean, he was an outstanding pitcher. They changed rules because of him.
Yeah, they had to lower the mound.
I mean, at that point, though, little baseball history for everybody here. The live ball era was such a cheat for hitters for so many years.
For about 10 or 12.
Maybe even a little bit longer. It took pitchers a long time. Before then, it was the same ball. Pitchers could put whatever the hell they wanted on it, and they did.
Spitball era.
And all of a sudden, pitchers had to kind of adjust to this new way of playing baseball, and it took them a while to get used to it, get used to using rosin, how they can get their hands sticky so they can grip the ball. By the 60s, they had figured it out, and pitching had far and away advanced beyond the hitters.
I think it was the same year. Denny McClain had 31 wins.
Wow. Most, still a record, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, it was certainly the most since 1960. Nobody's ever approached it in modern baseball.
And they won't now, not with the rules that are in place.
But guys are supposedly bigger, faster, stronger. This kind of a pitching production, you're never going to get to a Bob Gibson year, but you should be able to make a full, complete game.
But the issue is you have a whole generation of kids that were never trained to pitch. It was you have to hit 97 to make it to the bigs, and it just shouldn't be about that. We've talked about this, and we'll continue to talk about this till we're blue in the face. Pitchers have to pitch. No more of this throwing nonsense. Pitchers have to pitch, and it's going to lengthen their careers. It's going to make those contracts bigger because you have more guys to rely on for long distances. It's just a different way to look at things. This closer mentality nonsense needs to stop. Craig Counsels of the world need to be put in their place, which is why I like the Rob Manfred rule about getting pitchers to go longer. I don't agree with putting necessarily a rule into it, but you got to start with the minors and start stretching these guys out for longer innings.
You've got to get somebody like Craig Maddox to start coaching all these guys.
You do.
Because not only could he place the ball everywhere, the guy was so smart, and I think we might have talked about this on a previous show. He set up a batter 2 months before he played. he had to face him in the playoffs.
Yeah, Astros. I think it was Jeff Bagwell, but I could be wrong on that. He intentionally threw a pitch inside, knowing he liked the pitches inside, because he said the Braves and Astros are both good teams. We're going to see them in the playoffs. And sure enough, they did see them in the playoffs. Pitched him inside in that game. He hit a home run. 2 months later, looked at his catcher after he struck him out and said he was waiting on that pitch. And it's just like, who thinks like
And the
that?
catcher had forgotten about it.
Yeah, like who thinks like that? We need that type of pitching back. Now we'll never see another Greg Maddux again, but again, stopping these guys from overthrowing, it's shortening careers. If I'm the players union, I want this in place because I don't want my guys that I'm paying throwing out their arms. That's why people are afraid to give big contracts. Look what happened to Steven Strasburg.
Mm-hmm.
Guaranteed, if he was actually stretched out and it wasn't about throwing as hard as you can, he would have had a very long and healthy career. But these kids blow out their arms by the time they're 22, 23 years old.
Pitchers have to stop throwing and start pitching again.
We need to go back to seeing Justin Verlander's, Max Scherzer's again, who really are artists on the mound and really paint the plate.
Mm-hmm.
Do that. Get rid of the stupid box that shows balls and strikes incorrectly on a regular basis. I'm sick and tired of seeing balls that are at the knees. That little box that doesn't change with the size of the hitter. It's the same box. It's like, nope, that was definitely a strike. And you just made the entire audience think that was a ball. Drives me nuts.
Yeah, that's why the College World Series was so nice, because they didn't have the box.
Get rid of the box. But it is time for the NFL season, and I have a question for you. So big news came out. Not a question I ever thought we'd talk about before the start of a season, but an emergency meeting was called in Minnesota by Roger Goodell to discuss allowing private equity firms to get a 10% stake in ownership of NFL teams. Maximum 10% stake. The idea is private equity firms are going to be able to help finance stadiums, but it also stipulates that these private equity firms can have ownership in up to no more, but up to 6 NFL teams, which has never been a thing. The NFL has always said one owner, one NFL team. You can't have ownership in multiple teams. This seems to be changing now.
So how much is finance going to begin to drive the decisions that are made even more than they are now?
My question is because the idea of this that I like about it, how they're selling this is going to help them finance stadiums, right? But every other sports leagues already allows private equity firms to own them.
We haven't seen that in the other sports.
So where do these guys come and play? Why is this such a big play? And I guess that's why I'm confused here.
I am as well. On the surface, my knee-jerk reaction was, no, I don't want the BlackRocks of the world owning up to 6 NFL franchises, even if it is only 10%. That's a lot.
It is.
It's enough to influence decisions that are being made. But I may be missing something. And I think we should ask Russ about that when he comes on.
I think we should too, and it looks like he is coming on right now. We have him waiting for us. So let's get over to Russ Landy, former NFL and CFL executive and scout. Hey, Russ, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me on today.
Oh, our pleasure. So we also learned you have big news to announce. It sounds like you're getting back in football.
I am. My plan was all along this year to be teaching again at Concordia University, and then out of the blue, I received an opportunity to jump back in. So I'm going to still be teaching at Concordia, but now I'm going to be doing some scouting for the Toronto Argonauts in the CFL.
There's an emergency meeting of all the owners today, and they voted to approve that private equity firms can own up to 10% in up to 6 teams in the NFL. What's your first reaction on that?
The reality is there aren't many humans that can afford teams anymore as individual owners. So I think they're trying to find a way to keep the value of franchises going up without having to, say, force in like partnership groups of 80 or 90 partners where one partner could own 3%.
Now, see, you mentioned that, and that's where I get nervous because there's ways to fudge paper to look like that private equity firms only own 10%, but in reality, these are the main money people behind these teams, and secretly, these private equity firms are just going to own these franchises.
And that's why I said it really is going to come down to seeing the real language behind this. it may be something along the lines of maybe a current owner would have to have a stake in one of these private equity firms, or there's got to be some. I would hope there are some safeguards
Well, and that's the
because
scary thing too, is like they said they can have ownership in up to 6 NFL teams. So if these are the main money people behind all these teams and secretly they have people on the board that own these teams, it's just going to open up a ridiculous situation.
Yeah, I wonder if it's one of those things where, and like I said, we have to see what the real rules are. There may be some very restrictive guidelines. It may be something where it's they're buying, but they're buying a blind trust. And if it's something like that where they're putting in, they're getting 10%, but they're not allowed to even attend meetings, they're
Yeah.
not allowed to communicate. Okay, that's fine. If they can only invest money to see what the profits end up being, and they're not allowed to be involved, okay, that's one thing. But if they get to actually start sitting in on meetings and board meetings and stuff, to me, that's where you have to be nervous. Not that these guys have bad intentions to ruin a franchise, but part of what's made the NFL great is that each team is competing to win, not just competing to make money.
Right. And we've seen that transition in baseball where you have teams that mentioned the Pirates, the Marlins, the Orioles, not so much anymore, but had been before, where it's like they're taking this revenue sitting back and just who cares about the team we're getting paid. And like you said, the NFL's never been about that. The parity in this league is outstanding. I'm with you. This makes me nervous. I know we have to see the rules, but I don't know. Just hearing you say that kind of makes me a little more
Yeah,
nervous
I will.
about this.
I will say the one good thing that the NFL has done, and not just one good thing, but one really great thing that has helped them that a lot of other leagues that have salary caps don't is they have a salary floor.
Right.
So that prevents a team from doing what some of these Major League Baseball teams are doing, which is, hey,
That's
we're
true.
going to go with knock our salary. Imagine if NFL team now the cap is 250. What if a team said, hey, we're going to go with 40 million?
Right.
We're going to play with
Yeah.
that. So the question becomes: does the NFL say, okay, if you're going to take on private equity, your floor is higher?
Right. Well, and they've made that rule change. Remember, the Jaguars used to run with a $40 million roster all the time, and the NFL stepped in and said, "No, you have to spend X amount over a 5-year period of your salary cap. No questions asked. You're going to start losing draft picks." But I agree. If you're going to have these private equity firms, you might have to increase that now.
Yeah, and maybe make that sort of your penalty for, hey, if you want to have equity as the ownership, then instead of the floor being at, I think I want to say 160 or 180
I
this
think you're
year,
right. Yeah.
that maybe it's going to be 5% or 10% more, because we want to make sure your organization is investing and not just trying to make a profit.
That's smart because that's not what baseball did. And that's what it's allowing these people to sit back. They're like, we're shared revenue, but we're putting no stipulation on how much you actually have to spend on players. That's a really good thought.
And
Well, part of it's also, remember, baseball is still so union controlled. The contracts are guaranteed. There's no true cap. It's only a luxury tax.
Right.
So if they ever got around to getting an NFL style cap, they could probably get a minimum, and it would probably help the league.
a
It
But
lot.
I
would.
don't think you'll ever see it.
No, I don't think so either. Not with the union as strong as it is. They're selling this by saying, well, these guys are going to help finance the stadiums. I'll believe it when I see it, but I mean, it sounds like they're using trigger words. This will sell well to the public if
Yeah.
they're not going to need tax money anymore.
And you know what? I think more of the question becomes is maybe they're not going to actually bring in money to build the stadium. But remember, most of these private equity people have a lot more regular interaction with government officials. So there may be a lot better ways for
There you
these
go.
people to
Yeah.
come in, and who knows, maybe this ends up being a thing where private equity jumps in and they say, okay, Green Bay, not that Green Bay would ever be this, but maybe they go to Detroit, they take 10% and they say, all right, we're going to work this, get that new stadium, and once the new stadium, we're going to sell that percentage back, and we're going to go help Tampa. And then when Tampa gets a new stadium, we'll do that because these guys are much more well versed than NFL owners and even the NFL at manipulating politicians, working cities, because that's what they do for a living.
They've got
It's
very
all
high
they do.
priced lobbyists.
Yes.
That is
So
that is a question here though, actually. I'm glad you said that because the Packers are publicly owned, right?
yep.
A private equity firm can't buy into the Green Bay Packers. It's not possible. With
Yep.
Green Bay being the smallest sports market in the world, could this end up hurting a team like the Packers in the long run?
Well, I think what it could do is imagine if this works really well.
Yeah.
6 teams take on private equity. League loves it. It raises the value. They say, okay, we're going to allow more. And all of a sudden, you have 24 teams, 26 teams that allow 10%, and those teams' values going up. Is that enough owners or ownership groups to where they go to the league and say, hey, we don't want the Packers to be a public franchise anymore?
Can they
We
do
want,
that though? I don't even know if that's possible.
just it's hard. I mean, people always said, could they get Daniel Snyder out? You need 3/4 of the owners to vote to kick out an owner.
Yeah.
Could they kick out an owner? No. I mean, could they? It's possible. But could they put enough pressure on the Packers to change their ownership group? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying we're talking far-fetched ideas here. That could that happen down the road if private equity goes sideways? Yeah, and anything could. Or it could be we're private equity. We own the LA Chargers. We own 10%. We don't like how the money's being distributed. We want to stop sharing certain revenue.
See, and that's what Jerry Jones has been pushing for forever, is to stop doing that, which would cripple the Packers organization.
It would cripple the league.
Yeah,
and I get that Jerry is a businessman, and he's one of the best that's ever been a part of the NFL. I totally get that. He's brought more money in than the Cowboys are even worth. I mean, he's done enormous good financially for the league. But if they were to stop sharing money, you would see, I don't know, it would become a huge have and have-nots league. You would see teams like Green Bay, the Chargers, they would become secondary citizens in this league because they're not going to either have the funds or be willing to spend to match the Jerrys, the Giants, the few teams that really have it and are willing to spend it.
Yeah, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, their owner owns how many other teams across the world?
A lot, but I mean, that's why every fan in the NFL should get down on their knees and thank the Mara family, because they were the ones back in 1960 that said, no, it's got to be shared equally amongst all of us.
You in your 40s.
They were the ones that said what's good for the league, or what's good for the league is good for the team. I mean, that's the reality of it.
I do have a question. I want to get on to rookie quarterbacks and everything else I want to talk about, but because we brought up Jerry Jones, we had a big argument the other week, and I got ripped apart on the internet. And so I need to hear from you. I made a comment saying Jerry Jones is possibly the greatest GM in the NFL right now with how he's built his teams. He always has a winning team. Am I wrong to say this, or am I right?
No, you're wrong.
Well, I'll say this. I don't know if he's the greatest. I think Jerry does a better job than he gets credit for acquiring talent. I think the issue you run into, and I think McCarthy is sort of an unusual circumstance in that he was out and was so desperate to get in that he was willing to go to work for a team where the reality is at some point he's not going to have a winning season and he will be fired.
Yeah.
There is no chance they will ever fire the GM in Dallas.
Right.
So because of that, they've always had to usually settle for secondary coaches. That's where having a guy like Jerry is sort of a negative. Not that he's not a good GM or a good businessman. It's just sort of like what the Chargers have dealt with for years. John Spanos is the owner's son. He really runs their scouting. He's the head muckety muck.
Okay.
So they've had to go with secondary coaches a lot of the time because a lot of coaches went there would think, why am I going to go there? If I have one losing season, I'm fired. Well, now I think they realize that. They went and got Coach Harbaugh, and they brought in Joe Horowitz from Baltimore, and they're stepping aside. But it's still a hard thing when you have a guy like a Jerry or a situation like Spanos, where there is a family member who is entrenched as the head of sort of scouting and football. Just makes it hard. I think Jerry does a good job building a roster. I just don't know if that's the ideal setup you want to attract the best coaches.
See, and that's the best explanation I've heard. I accept that explanation. I'm still right. He said I was right. I said GM.
I don't know if I said you were the best. I don't know if I said he was the best. He's a good GM. Yeah.
You give him an inch. You give him an inch, he's going to take 14 miles. So
you said I was partly right, which means I was right on this show. So I appreciate it.
All right, let's get into start with rookie quarterbacks. There's a whole crop of them. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. They're starting day one. What's going to happen? What's happening to them right now? And what happens in the clubhouse when they inevitably get that rough patch and they get punched in the mouth and they go on a 4 or 5 game losing streak?
Well, I think firstly, they're all in for a huge awakening because rookie quarterbacks in the preseason. It all looks so rosy and beautiful because all they're seeing is vanilla. Um, the easiest way, given it's many years ago, but the easiest way to look at it is if we go back and I'm an old person, so I can remember this. When Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf came out, there was all the debate about both of them. And if you go look at their training camps, Ryan was significantly better than Peyton in
100%.
terms of passer rating, all the stats. Everybody was excited. Well, that was because things were vanilla. Drop back, we're in zone or we're in straight man. We're not doing different coverages. It's very easy. We're not blitzing like crazy. And then the regular season started, and Leaf did okay for a game or two, but then it sort of fell off for a variety of reasons. And Manning obviously became Manning. So whether it's Caleb or Bo or Jaden, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. I tend to think that Bo may be in the best position to handle this because he was at Auburn, had a lot of ups and downs,
Yeah.
dealt with that, went to Oregon, had ups and downs there too, but he came out getting better, and he's with one of the best quarterback coaches in Sean Payton you're going to have. Now, I do think Caleb is a unique kid because he's so good in terms of confidence, in terms of smarts, that I think he'll be able to weather the storm. The question becomes, this is a team that has been planning sort of for this year and next year for a long time. If things don't go well early and the team starts losing, is there going to be panic saying, oh my God, we got the wrong guy? And this team starts going down because the reality is this coach and this GM are tied to Caleb. And I'm not saying it should be, but they're tied to Caleb.
They are.
And if he does not succeed and the pressure starts mounting on him, it'll be hard. Whereas I don't think Bo is going to feel that pressure, A, because he's not the number one pick, and B, he's got Sean Payton, who's a little bit of take the sort of the sunlight away from me.
Well, let's talk about the Bears because we talked about them a couple weeks ago. Say they go 4-13 this year. Eberflus, is he going to be fired, or would they stick with him because of Caleb?
I would say if they only win 4, there's going to be a lot of disappointed people. There's a lot of people that really think this is going to be a good team.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this: if they keep Eberflus after that type of year, what it tells you is that he and Poles told the owners it's a 2-year process. Once we get Caleb, and you have to commit to this for us to take him. And it also means that 2025, if they're not winning, both of them are getting fired.
Got it.
It's not going to be something where the head coach survives and the GM doesn't.
And this is where I think you have to keep Eberflus after this year. I think the Bears have put them in a situation where that has to be the case. Because what have they done to their last 2 quarterbacks? Their coach is fired the year after. Now it's a new offensive system. Now it's a new GM. You're bringing in guys. You're not their guy. All this and that. You decide to keep Eberflus and get Caleb Williams. No matter win, lose, or draw, that's your guy.
It's a tough spot. Now, don't get me wrong. And I'm not rooting for them to fail. Ryan Paul's a great dude. We have some mutual friends, and they just rave about him. So I'm hoping it turns out great for him. I mean, I really want to see the Bears do well. But if it doesn't, and they have to move on, there's a lot of people that are going to look at that team and say, okay, look, yes, Keenan Allen's 100, but he's still a good receiver.
Yeah.
Moore is a good receiver. We've got some good young guys on the offensive line. They've done a good job building this roster. I don't think it'll be as nerve-wracking for a new head coach and GM to come in and say, we feel confident in Caleb, and we feel confident in this team that 2 years we can get it turned around.
I don't think they're going to be 4-13, just for the record. I think they're going to have more wins than that. But if it does go south, I think they finally have to go and get an offensive-minded coach instead of constantly bringing in defensive guys.
Detroit, or it's Chicago.
I know.
Yeah, and also let's also remember, even if they're better this year with Green Bay and Detroit in the division, they still may only win 5 or 6 games. And
Did you
that's
ever
what you
think you'd have Detroit in that sentence?
Not until they really brought in a GM and a head coach that made sense.
Right.
Some of the people they had in there in prior to them were either guys that just mystified you as to how they became a GM, or were just stunning that they were head coaches. So this to me makes a lot of sense in terms of when you see the people, when you hear the stories of how they are in terms of their work ethic, what they do, how organized they are. It's not shocking. I'm excited for it. It's great.
Come on, you're telling me Matt Millen You don't know how he became a GM? Come on.
Actually, I know how he became one more than some of the other guys.
All right. Well, we're going to
That's fair.
pick division winners here in a minute, but I've heard constant conversations all over comparing CJ Stroud and Jordan Love. Jordan was, for all intents and purposes, a rookie last year, first year starting. CJ had that incredible first year. Number one, what are they going to do? Would you stop? What are they going to do now that all the teams have tape on them? They're going to be changing things up and showing them things they've never seen before. How do quarterbacks like that react? And which do you think is going to do better this year, Stroud or Love?
Well, firstly, that's always the great reason why you always have to take a deep breath on first year starting quarterbacks, because the history, and you just go back to you guys, we talked about Peyton Manning, but I don't know if you guys know who held every rookie passing record before Peyton. And that was
Uh,
Rick Meyer.
Rick Meyer, yeah,
Because Rick
Seattle.
Meyer was like a rocket and then he collapsed. Because once teams find out what you can't do, they force you to do what you can't do until you do it well. Jordan has obviously a big advantage because although it was his first year starting, he had been in the league and gone through preseason, gone through practice to where, trust me, there were people in the league who had heard through people at the Packers or watching preseason, hey, here are some of the flaws. Here are some of the things the warts you're going to have to deal with. So if you notice, that's part of why, in addition to being his first time starting, the early part of the season, he had his struggles.
Yeah.
He got better as the year went on. I think he's not going to probably play at that level because now teams identify, oh, this is what he did really well. We're going to take that away. Stroud, unfortunately, like most quarterbacks going into their second year, he's going to have to deal with the fact that most teams, especially the division, they've spent all offseason figuring out here are the 4 things he doesn't do well. We're going to force him into those situations as much as we can. If I were to bet on the quarterback who has a better year this year, I think it's going to be Love. If I were going to bet on a quarterback who 5 to 7 years from now, I'm going to say this is the better quarterback, I would say Stroud.
I mean, you're wrong, but I might be a
Yeah,
little
maybe
biased
Stroud
there.
is going to be better at both. I mean, hey.
They could both end up with gold jackets. I'd be fine
Yes,
with that.
exactly. I mean, hey, and I'm not knocking Love. I was early in the season last year. There were some things that made me say, "Wow, you got to be concerned." But he got better and better and better, and really showed a maturity for a "quote unquote" young rookie quarterback that you don't expect. And I think some of that was benefit of sitting for that time. I'm excited to see where he goes because all I've ever heard is what a great kid he is.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to see where it's going to go from here. I'm hopeful it's good because with the Packers, like the Bears, when those two teams are winning, it's good for the league.
You're not wrong on that one. I'd love to see the Bears get competitive. I don't want to see them get too good, but I'd love to see them get competitive. And just remember, all you need is love. That's all you need. Love is all you need.
Stop it. All right. So
You have
Jalen
to
Hurts.
pay a fee every time he says that.
Oh, McDonald's should be paying. They should be sponsoring us at this point.
Because I'm loving it.
Thank you so much. And the Beatles are going to come asking for money because
That's
of that.
what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
No, they believe in it too. They it's a prophecy. They said all you need is love. They were talking about the Green Bay Packers in the year 2024.
Anyways, so Jalen Hurts had a bad season last year. Do you think he's going to have the bounce back? They certainly got him the weapons. And then what other quarterbacks are really on hot seats going into this season?
Well, first, I think Hurts will be a little better, but I think he's going to, I don't think he's going to be the guy, the elite, truly rare, special guy. I think there are some flaws there. I think teams started figuring that out. So I'm not very confident in how their offense is going to be this year. I think, truthfully, a guy the pressure has got to be on is the former Packer. I mean, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if you're going to be out there speaking the way you are, putting your face out there, you got to perform. And the reality is, his final 2 years in Green Bay, I'm not saying he was bad, but he wasn't
good.
Aaron. He was a good quarterback. He wasn't a Hall of Fame quarterback. And now you miss a year with the Achilles. Okay, is he going to be good? Is he going to be average? If he doesn't go well, everybody's going to be looking for jobs after this year. So I'm hoping I'm wrong because, like, just sort of like the Packers and Bears, you want to see them win. Great quarterbacks, you want to see them play and be elite because it's fun to watch. But there's definitely some concern there. And then you got to look at Pittsburgh and say, well, is Russell Wilson done? Is his career over? And is Justin Fields salvageable? Can he become the player we all hoped he could be when he came out of Ohio State? or are we talking about a guy who's a perennial back?
That's the question. See, Jalen Hurts is an interesting one because my question is okay, you don't have a center there that clearly cheated during the tush push
He
for
did
several
not
years.
cheat.
So how are you going to go? How are you going to do this without that advantage being there? He did
Well,
cheat.
forgetting the tush push. If you think about it, and this is something that doesn't get spoken about enough, but in today's NFL, the center is so vital.
Yeah.
Because when the quarterback's making all the checks, the center has to not only hear that, but he has to make the appropriate checks on the line and see what the quarterback's seeing. So now you're taking away whether he ends up being a Hall of Famer or right at the border, whatever it may be. You're talking about an elite center who mentally was just unbelievable. Now you're replacing him. There are going to be some screw ups just due to the unfamiliarity between the two of them, and because it's unlikely he's going to be good as Kelsey. So where do they go? Is that offense take a step back in addition to having a new coach, having to deal with Hurts, and teams doing more work on them? I'm very nervous about where Eagles are going. And I hate to say that because I like a lot of people that work there, but I'm very nervous about them.
Well, you're not wrong. All jokes aside, Kelsey is one of the greatest centers to ever play the game, and that mental aspect was a huge part of it, and that helped out Jalen a lot. And it's really on him this year.
Yep, 100% it is.
Well, and here's a quarterback that I question. He's had a couple of years now where he has not done what he's expected. He's got Doug Peterson for a coach. What do you think is going to go on with Trevor Lawrence this year?
You know, it's a great question. I actually spoke to somebody in the league about 4 or 5 days ago, and he said there's a lot of buzz around the league that if this team doesn't not only make the playoffs, but make some inroads in the playoffs, that he wouldn't be shocked if they got rid of Peterson and the GM. I mean, I like Lawrence. I think he's a good quarterback. He has not taken the next steps yet. The inconsistency that occasionally was there when he was at Clemson has consistently shown itself in the NFL. It's something that's frustrating because when he's on, he is spectacular. But there are also too many stretches where he goes up and down series to series. I'm hopeful it's different. Again, it's another team. I have 2 or 3 good friends that work there, so I want to see them succeed. And I do like Lawrence, but I am not optimistic it's going to work out well there in Jacksonville. Which means, of course, go bet on Jacksonville. They'll probably win because if I'm questioning them, they're probably going to be great.
Hey, you got my record when it comes to football. That's what that means.
Finally, you got 2 guys that are coming off, besides Rodgers, you got 2 other guys coming off major injuries. You got Richardson in Indianapolis, and you've got Kirk Cousins down in Atlanta. What do you think? What's going to happen with those 2?
Well, Richardson, to me, is basically going to have your up and down rookie year now because he didn't get a chance to really show it last year. They're a talented team in terms of O-line, D-line. The concern is this guy going to always be a guy that gets banged up? But there's a lot there to like. He seems like a natural thrower. He can pass the ball with accuracy. I think there's going to be a lot of ups and downs this year. I think they're probably a 7 or 8 win team, but I think you're going to see him make strides as long as he stays healthy. You're going to see the potential of what could be down the road. I think Cousins, I mean, he's going to be what he is. Is he the premier top 5 quarterback? I don't think he's that good, but is he a top 8 or 10 guy? Yup. And with the talent they have around there in Atlanta, I think you're going to see them do well. I think you're going to see Kyle Pitts have a gigantic season. And I think they're going to be in the running to win their division. I don't think they're going to be great, but Cousins will be good.
Kyle Pitts is definitely going to have an outstanding season because it's the first time since he's been in the league he's not on my fantasy team, which means he's going to take off. That's how the rules work.
I understand that too, because trust me, he's the best tight end I've ever graded coming out.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for him to show it.
I'm with you. I think the league is better if Kyle Pitts has an outstanding year this year. On to the divisions here. Wait a minute.
Let's
got one more.
I've got one more quick question. There's a bunch of new coaches in the league this year. Which ones are going to have the biggest impact in year 1?
Well, I'll say this. To me, there's one, and then there's everybody else, and that's Coach Harbaugh. I'd be stunned if they don't win 12 games. And really? I'd be stunned if they don't challenge to go to the Super Bowl.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very talented team that has dealt with, in my opinion, bad coaching for about a decade. I mean, think about it. They had Phillip Rivers made the playoffs 1 out of 3 years. Now, I'm not saying he's Aaron Rodgers, but he's good enough to go to the playoffs most years.
He's a borderline Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, borderline Hall of Fame. I don't think he is, and I'm a Chargers guy, as you can see from Dan Fouts on my wall
Yeah.
behind me. But I don't think he's Hall of Fame. But still, they should have been in the playoffs more. One of my close friends works with Chargers. He said the level of competition in every single aspect of their organization is different now.
Oh, for
Every
sure.
player understands that this is not you're happy to be in the NFL, you're happy to have a job. It's every minute of every day you're competing to be the best.
But if
And
you
I
look at
think
that team, this is a rebuild team. You really think Harbaugh is going to make that big of a difference? I mean, they're starting over completely at wide receiver. Running back, they have a bunch of guys that have never
yep,
had healthy seasons.
but
A
you have
defense, bunch of no names.
right, you have Joey Bosa and you have Khalil Mack with 17 sacks last year. So there will be good rushing the passer, and that's the most important part of defense. On the O line, you have very good left tackle in Rashawn Slater.
Yeah.
You've got the Runyon kid at right tackle, or not Runyon. I always confuse their names. Alt at
Alt,
right
Joe
tackle.
Alt, yep.
So they're going to be solid on the row line. I'm the believer, and some people don't agree, some do. I look at those Pats teams, all those Super Bowls they won, and who did they have catching balls? David Gibbons.
That's fair.
All these guys. The quarterback is going to make the receiver. Now, don't get me wrong. Great receivers help a quarterback.
Yeah.
But great receivers like Calvin Johnson didn't do a whole lot of nothing. So if they can make Herbert become the player he's got the talent to be, and they protect him with those big old dogs up front, they're going to score a lot of points. They're going to run the ball down teams' throats, and they're going to be, I think, one of the 2 or 3 most physical teams in the league. So I think they're going to win a lot of games. I think the 2 coaches that I don't know if it's going to be this year, but I'm very nervous about, and I hate to say it, especially, I think Mayo in New England and McDonald in Seattle. And it's nothing, I don't even know either one, never met either one, don't know anything about them, but I just look at the history of professional sports. How often has a legend been replaced and things gone well? And then you add in, normally when you replace a legend and it goes well, it's because you say, okay, this guy, he's retiring or he's dead or whatever it may be. We're changing everything. Because he clearly lost his way. We're bringing in Jimmy Johnson. He's going to run things in Dallas because Tom Landry didn't do his thing anymore. Well, and it's not to knock them, but Bill leaves. They promote his right-hand man in personnel and his right-hand man as a coach. So the change is that Bill isn't there anymore, but the way they're doing things, the people that are there learn from Bill.
Yeah.
So is it possible? I hope it works. Is Elliot Wolf, there may not be a smarter, better human being in the business. He's a great guy. Love him as a person. Love what he's done. I think he's everything you want in a GM. I just don't know if that's the way you replace a guy like that. And then out in Seattle, I mean, it sounds like there was a push between the GM and the head coach after 15 years of being together that led to Pete Carroll being pushed out. And I don't care what people say. He may be old, Pete, but there's not a younger man coaching football in this world. He had a way to relate to players that was uncommon. And I think it's going to be very, very hard to replace that. I would be amiss to say if I were looking at coaches that are there already that you got to be worried about. I mean, the Jets and the Giants. I mean, shoot, New York may have 2 new head coaches by the end of the year, especially the Giants. I mean, going to bat with Daniel Jones. Woo! After that 6-1 start 2 years ago, what are they? 6-20 something? I mean, it's bad news, and I don't think it's getting any better.
You're not wrong, and you may have just changed my division pick with you speaking on the Chargers. I hadn't thought about that. That's a lot of hope in Herbert, but he's talented. That kid is very talented.
I'm not saying they're going to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs are, trust me, and again, I have good friends at the Chargers, a lot of good friends at the Chiefs. I'm not rooting for one over the other. The Chiefs are tough to beat. I mean, you have perhaps the best coach, not just perhaps the best coach in the NFL, in my opinion, by far. You have an elite, rare quarterback, so much talent all along the O-line, D-line. I mean, and they know how to win. They know how to win the close games. That's one of the biggest challenges Harbaugh is going to have, is taking a team that found a way to lose close games over the last 5 years and teaching them to win. That learning to win is not a fallacy. It legitimately is something you have to do with certain organizations.
All right. Well, let's start with the AFC West. Who are you picking for a winner in that division?
I hate to say it, but I am taking the Chiefs. I think the Chargers are going to be improved, but I will take the Chiefs to win that division because it's just Andy, and I don't bet against Andy when he has
How
Patrick
about the
Mahomes.
NFC West?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because I do think the Rams are going to be better than people expect this year,
I hope
but I
not.
will go with San
AFC South.
Francisco there again.
It's a tough one.
Um,
It is.
ooh. To me, it's like it's either Houston or nobody else. So I'm going to go with Houston. I'm going to bet on them. I really like Stroud. I think they've done a great job. Their front office, their head coaching. I think
All
they're
right,
all in
NFC
sync.
South.
So I'll go with Houston to win that division. Um, I got to go Tampa Bay. Baker. I love Baker.
He's fired up.
Yeah, I go Tampa Bay there. He is. He's fired up. I mean, the kid's awfully talented, awfully accurate.
Tampa's a
To
weird
me,
one
it's
too
like
because
Tampa
they're
by a
strangely
nose over
in this
Atlanta.
window where they could really do something special in the next couple of years. So I'm with you. I think Tampa Bay is going to be a sneaky good team. NFC East, who you got?
NFC East. Oof. I mean, that's. I mean, is that really even a debate?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really sort of Phillies okay, but the Giants and Washington. I think you're talking Giants going one way. I think Washington's improving, but
Eagles are my pick to be the first head coach fired. I could see a midseason firing if things go south, and I could see that early in the season. AFC East, who you got? This is a tough one. You got three legit teams here.
Do you?
You got the Bills, you got the Finns, and the Jets.
Do
Do you?
Yeah,
I'm not sold on the Jets yet.
The Jets?
I am.
Not at all. I mean, I think it's going to be the Bills. The odds, Bills were awfully well coached. They have a great front office. They just have to get out and play a little more consistently.
All right, AFC North.
That division. That to me is the tough division. To me, that is because I love Baltimore in terms of what they've done, but the Bengals have the best quarterback, and that guy works magic. He finds a way to win with nothing. That is a really tough one. I'm going to go Baltimore, but that's a really.
You think the Bengals are going to be any better this year, or not the Bengals? The Browns are going to be any better this year?
You know, I think they're a talented team. I just have a feeling, like off the field, I just mean he's basically been 3 years since we've seen anything in terms of great play. Not many quarterbacks sit and play at a mediocre level for that long and all of a sudden get back to be great. I think in that franchise, head coach, even though I think he's one of the elite coaches in the league because he's found a way to win with,
it's true,
to me, not so great teams. But that coach and that GM,
it's $200 million in dead cap space this year, 163 next year if they cut him. They need Deshaun Watson to work in a bad way. And on to our home division, the NFC North.
You know, to me, it's a two-team race. It really, to me, is going to come down to how, if he does not stay at close to the level of the final half of the season, and he's somewhere in the middle between that and what he did at the first half of the season, I'll see. I think Detroit by only 8 weeks, then I think they got a shot at winning that division. But if I were to bet today, I'd
Fair enough.
Detroit.
All right. Happens every year. 5 or 6 teams make the playoffs that didn't the year before, and that means 5 or 6 from this last year are not going to be in the playoffs coming up. Who do you think's most likely to be knocked out of the playoffs, and who's going to surprise everybody and get in?
Oof, that's a great question. To miss the playoffs this year, I could see Jacksonville. Trying to see what other teams glaringly. The Eagles, without question, have to be one of those teams you're looking at. I mean, the Vikings, I mean, geez, one before Kirk got hurt, and then they're going to be, I think it's going to be an utter disaster there without Kirk there. Yeah, those are my the teams that I think could come from nowhere to surprise people. I think Arizona could be a surprise. I think they're starting to become a better quarterback, so I could see them shocking people. I could see Denver surprising and getting a wild card spot in the AFC. I could see the Colts if Richardson stays healthy. And the Browns disaster in terms of inconsistency. They're a talented team. So I could see the Browns getting back into this.
All right.
Awesome. Well, Russ, we appreciate all of your insights. Thank you so much. Good luck with Toronto this year. We want to see you holding up a trophy when we talk
Trust
to you
me,
later this season.
I'm hoping so. I've never won a championship, so each year I'm hoping it's the time.
All right. We are going to have Toronto stuff now because the Argonauts, right?
Argonauts and Chad Kelly, Ole Miss quarterback, bounced around the NFL.
Chad Kelly's your quarterback this year?
Yeah, he is our quarterback.
Wow.
All right, I'm
watching MOP
CFL.
last year. So,
well, we've got room for Argonaut stuff on the wall here.
We'll put some
hey,
up
as soon
just
as
for
I
you.
get some, I'll send it over to you.
Hey, sounds like a plan. Thank you so much as always, Russ. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks
Take
a
care,
lot.
Russ.
The Chargers?
Harbaugh's a really good coach.
He may have changed my opinion completely on the Chargers this year.
I'm not as sold as he is.
All right.
I think they're going to be better.
Well, let's see how sold you are because we had Russ pick the divisions and teams for the playoffs. Now we have to make that pick before the NFL season starts. So what do you got? AFC West. Who's winning that division?
Kansas City. I'm not going against them yet.
If Travis Kelce gets hurt, the Chiefs are in trouble. I'm going to go out there. He wouldn't make that pick. He sold me. I was going to possibly pick the Broncos because I'm a big believer in Bo Nix, but I don't think they're there yet. I am picking the Chargers to win the division this year.
Look, Andy Reid may be the greatest coach ever.
He may be.
And I'm not betting against him yet.
I will.
I will tell you this. I'm so sick and tired of hearing everybody go, it would be the first time that any team has won back-to-back-to-back championships. No, it's not.
Well, it is the first time somebody went back-to-back Super Bowls.
They didn't have a Super Bowl the last time the Packers did it.
That's the conversation. NFC West, who you got?
NFC West, I'm taking the Rams.
Are you?
As long as Stafford stays healthy, I think they're going to go a step up, and I think San Francisco's got a lot of turmoil going on. I think they take a step back.
They easily could. There's too much talent and too good of a coach there on that team for them. I think it's going to be a much closer race. I think the winner of this division, believe it or not, has 10 wins max. I think it's going to be a division that's going to have a lot of turmoil inside of it. I think the Niners are going to win, but it's going to be coming down to head-to-head matchups.
Fair enough.
AFC South.
AFC South.
I'll answer this one. It's Houston. Houston's winning the division, and it's not even going to be close.
Okay, Ohio State fanboy speaks once again.
I mean, the talent, the coaching, the quarterback. They just brought in Stefan Diggs to be another wide receiver.
I know.
On that team.
I'm trying to talk myself into taking Indianapolis just because
Defensive
I don't want
head coach.
I don't want Ohio State to have another victory, but I am taking Houston.
NFC South.
I'm taking Atlanta. I am. I think Kirk Cousins is going to do enough to get them in the playoffs. I am not believing in Tampa Bay the way you and Russ did.
Well, here's the thing. I do believe 100% in the fact that Tampa Bay is in this weird window now because they have some aging players, they have a good team, they have a quarterback who can take them there. I am also taking Atlanta. I think Kirk Cousins is going to come back to MVP form. I don't know if he's going to be as good as he was last year. I think that was his one shot at MVP. But Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Raheem Morris, who is a very underrated defensive guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think Atlanta takes this division. But I do think you're going to have Atlanta and Tampa Bay in double-digit wins. And I think Carolina gets the first overall pick again.
And we'll take a quarterback.
And we'll take a quarterback. AFC East.
I said it last year. I thought the Bills would be the one team that didn't make the playoffs.
You did.
I was almost right.
I was
I
with
ended
you. I agreed with you on that.
I don't think it's going to be the Jets. I'm going to go with the Dolphins.
Dolphins don't play in the cold.
I know, but I think they're going to do enough to win the division.
They have to win the division if they're going to do anything in the playoffs, because they proved last year lightning does not run on ice.
Correct. Nice, cool runnings reference.
Thank you. Disney did go after us for that. We need to be careful
That's
with
true.
it now. No more clips from that. I am a believer in Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
Jets, 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 Jets.
All
I
right.
want to see a Packer quarterback go someplace else like New York and really do well. I think Rodgers is going to come back. He's not running for VP. He might as well win MVP. Jets.
Rodgers with a chip on his shoulder is always the most dangerous player on the field.
He's going to be the most vice president of the NFL this year. NFC East.
I would have said Eagles going into this, but then I listened to Russ, and he pointed out some things about that team. I'm not sold on their head coach.
No. Sirianni's going to have a hard time
I'm
this
not
year.
sure I believe in Kellen, their offensive coordinator.
Oh, Kellen Moore.
Moore. Thank you. But the Cowboys just signed CeeDee Lamb. Dak Prescott's playing for mega dollars.
So is Micah Parsons.
I still am going to take the Eagles.
I said it with Russ. I'm going to say it now. I think Sirianni's the first coach fired.
Okay.
I really do. They are missing the cheating on the tush push. I mean, you have to be a great center to get away with cheating on a tush push. I'm just saying. I don't think the Eagles are going to do well at all this year.
Okay.
I really don't. I think this is the Cowboys division to win. I think this division is going to be solved with 4 games left in the season. I think it's going to be all wrapped up.
Look,
the Cowboys are going to win it big time, and yet Mike McCarthy will still be
get
fired
fired.
at the end of this year.
Correct.
AFC North.
AFC North. Wow. If Burrow's healthy, it's the Bengals, so I'm going to go with the Bengals.
Bengals all day for me as well. I think it's going to be a close division. I think the Browns are going to end up with a top 10 pick because I think they screwed themselves with Deshaun Watson, and I said it when it happened. You get what you deserve.
Right.
This is all on you.
There was certain karma that was just attached to
I
that
feel
move.
really bad for Kevin Seifert because he is an outstanding head coach, and the GM made this call, and he's kind of been stuck with it. Where can you imagine if they had just drafted a quarterback position they'd be in? They'd be a much better team. It is the Bengals and football Jesus because he is going to show once again he walks on water. NFC North.
Lions or Packers?
Okay, you have to pick one.
Oh, okay.
I mean, could be Bears. The Bears have a weak schedule. There's no such thing as a weak schedule in the NFL. I will say that. But if you look at the teams that they get to play, it's a lot of weak teams, especially early on. They don't play any division games until late in the season.
There's a lot of targets that are already painted on Williams' back.
Yeah.
Because I think he kind of hacked off a few old timers.
Yeah, probably.
And he's going to get punched in the mouth, but I think he's going to have a decent year. But I don't think they're going to win the division. If I've got to believe in Jordan Love. He plays the way he did the second half of the year, and he is a really good kid. Packers win.
If the Packers don't win the division, it has nothing to do with Jordan Love. There's a new defense in place now in Green Bay, and it's going to take 4 or 5 games for this team to get used to it as talented as they are. So if they don't win the division, it's because the defense was not ready. Sam Darnold, it's his show with a really good defensive coordinator and is still very talented offense. I could see the Vikings being good this year. I mean, this could be a tough division.
I made my pick. Who are you taking?
I'll never pick against the Green Bay Packers. It is the Green Bay Packers, but I could easily see Detroit winning this division as well.
I could as well. I mean,
I could see the Vikings being sneaky good.
Look, they brought back their offensive coordinator. He turned down a head coaching job in Washington because he wants the Super Bowl with that.
The only reason I'm not picking Detroit is because I'm fully admit I am a Packer homer. Fully admit to that, and that's why I'm picking the Packers.
Same here.
I could easily see the Lions winning this division. To the 2024 NFL playoff teams, what teams made it last year that won't make it this year?
Well, I can't take the Eagles because I took them to win the division. Um, Seahawks were
Not in the playoffs
they
last
weren't
year.
in the playoffs. Da-da-da-da-da-da. I will take Tampa Bay not making the playoffs. And and that I mean,
You think the Eagles are going to make the playoffs this year?
well, I'm taking them to win
You
the
took them to win
division.
division, that's right.
They better make it, but I could easily see Philadelphia not making it and Dallas falling in the tank. One of those two is going to just not be there this year. How
Okay.
about you?
I don't think the Eagles are going to make it. I think the Buccaneers are going to be a wild card team. I don't think the Rams are going to make it because I only think one team's coming out of the NFC West. I don't think Cleveland's going to be in the playoffs. I don't think the Steelers are going to be in the playoffs this year.
I don't think the Steelers are going to be there either.
And I could see the Dolphins or Buffalo not be in the playoffs, but I think they are going to be in the playoffs.
You're going to have 3 teams from that division in?
No, because I don't think.
You
No,
got
there's
the
only 2
Jets.
teams. Oh, yeah, I have the Jets in this year. Oh, I have to pick one of those not being in, don't I?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Because I don't think the Browns are going to be in. I could see 3 teams coming from the AFC East making the playoffs this year.
Browns aren't going to be in. Colts are going to be up in the air because this really is Richardson's first rookie season.
There's going to be one team I think you're going to see 3 wild card or 3 teams from the AFC East. I could easily see that. Or the Dolphins aren't going to make it. I think the Bills are going to be in this year. I think the Jets are going to be in this year. I can see the Dolphins not making it.
Bills have lost a lot.
They have, but Josh Allen now gets to prove that he's the. I mean, it all depends on Josh Allen how he does without a number 1 receiver. I think he's going to do great.
I just hope the Packers aren't that surprise team that doesn't make it.
No, the Packers are going to make it. Detroit's going to make it. I don't think the Eagles are. I could see the Buccaneers not making it. I think they are though.
Cincinnati,
I don't think the Rams are going to make it.
I think the Rams are going to make it.
So final picks: Rams, Eagles, Browns, and Dolphins are not going to make the playoffs this year.
Fair enough.
Those are my teams that I'm going to
Okay.
pick. All right, what teams that didn't make it are going to replace those teams?
The Chargers will be in.
Yep.
I have a sneaking suspicion Denver's going to be on the heels. They could make it.
I agree.
Steelers aren't going to be in.
Nope. Oh, yeah, I didn't pick Steelers. I also picked the Steelers not being in. So I have 3 teams from the AFC that won't be in the playoffs this year.
I think Colts, Jaguars aren't going to be in.
No.
I just don't see them as having it. And it all depends on if Joe Burrow gets hurt again. Number 1, his career might be done, but number 2, they don't make it. I could see
I mean, he's got the hair now.
I could see the Ravens not making it.
I could too. But that's not the question. The question is who is going to make it.
I know. Who is going to make it? I said the Chargers, the Jets. I think the Jets are going to make it.
Okay.
I'll go on a flyer and take the Broncos. And in the NFC, there's going to be. I'll take the Cardinals to surprise everybody.
You're out of your damn mind.
I'm picking.
You're making stupid picks now.
No, I'm not. They've got the talent.
No, they don't.
Kyler Murray's got to step up. The Bears could. Yeah, I think I could see 3 teams from the NFC North.
Could happen.
I could see the Bears winning enough to get in. So
I think it's going to be the Vikings, not the Bears, if that happens. But
I don't think it'll be the Vikings. I don't trust Sam
all right, I had
Darnold.
3 teams out coming out from the AFC, which means I put 3 teams in. The Bengals are going to make it this year for sure. The Jets are going to make it for sure. And the Chargers are my 3 teams that are in that weren't in last year. I had how many teams? I said Eagles and Rams weren't going to make it this
Need one
year.
more.
And so I got to put 2 teams in from the NFC then. So I think Tampa Bay is going to make it in. I think the Falcons are going to make the playoffs this year.
Definitely the Falcons.
And I mean, my only other choice is a team from the NFC North then, because I don't think anybody from NFC East is going to make it besides the Cowboys. I already have Tampa and San Francisco and Atlanta in. I think San Francisco, but not the Rams, are going to make it, which means I'm putting in the Vikings. I think the Vikings are going to surprise everybody and make the playoffs.
You know who might surprise everybody? I don't think they will, but I could see the Commanders because they're going to sneak up on everybody.
No. There will be one team from the NFC East, which means I am putting 3 teams from the NFC North in. Call it whatever you want. I only think one team from the NFC West is going to make it. So either it's going to be the Rams or the Niners. I don't think both are going to make it. So that's my only choice.
Okay.
Those are my teams.
All right.
I'm going to ride with them.
We have an announcement.
We do have a big announcement before the show ends.
And by the way, it's one that makes me really, really happy.
It's one that I've told I have to be nice.
You have to be nice. So there's a new movie out all about the 1982 Milwaukee Brewers.
Titled The Team That Never Won.
No, that's not what it's called. It's called Just a Bit Outside. They're going to have a world premiere coming up on September 11th in the Milwaukee market. It's not often that a team can capture the hearts and souls of the fans of a region the way this team did. The only other ones I could think of off the top of my head in baseball, 69 Cubs. They got everybody involved. Stupid black cat. And the 1950s era Brooklyn Dodgers. They call them the Bums, but Brooklyn loved that team.
What about 2016 Chicago Cubs? They got everybody involved. Highest ratings baseball's had in a long time.
That love affair hasn't continued past. Now, maybe when it gets a few years beyond, everybody will start coming back. But the thing about the Brewers, the Cubs, and the Dodgers, the cores of those teams stayed together for a long time, and their fans connected with that team. I mean, we were talking to your cousin Chad. He still can name off the starting lineup, as I can, from that team.
We also learned Chad doesn't find me funny.
No, not at all. I don't blame him for that. So, anyways, we've got 2 great guests coming on. Sean Hanish and Kelly Call. They're going to be on. They were the producers of the movie. They're going to convince you why this team is one that should be remembered and not constantly saying,
I never said the team shouldn't be remembered.
You give me a hard time about it every time I bring them up. Every time.
Yeah, because they didn't win anything.
They won the American League pennant.
Okay. Show me the ring.
Listen,
I'm not saying
and I'm not going to say
this team is going to be, it shouldn't be remembered. I think there was a lot of characters. I see why Milwaukee fell in love with that team. I just think it's bizarre that a team is remembered this well. Again, you had to tell me when I was like 12 years old that this team never won a World Series. I couldn't believe it. I hear the stupid Raleigh finger things all the time. If you didn't get hurt, that's what the title of this should really be. Yeah. If Raleigh fingers didn't get hurt. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be this love affair. I think it's great. I just think it's bizarre that a team that never won is loved as much as this team is.
The Cubs never won. The Dodgers never won. And there's a love affair with those teams. Rich Nye, who I got to meet in the minor leagues.
You have a team in Milwaukee that won in 1957 and nobody knows who they are.
That's because the Braves moved. That's why. There was not a team
Braves don't care about them either.
They should. I mean, I've got
Milwaukee's team.
It's Milwaukee's team. And we've talked about this. I think that the Brewers and the Milwaukee in the park should be allowed to retire and display players from that team.
I agree. We've talked about this on the show before.
With their Braves uniform.
Yeah, with the M on their hat. I completely agree. We're on the same page here.
It's going to be a fun conversation.
Outside the stadium should be Warren Spahn, should be Eddie Matthews, should be a lot of members of that team.
Hank Aaron, Joe Adcock. Red Dinks, who is famous as a Cardinal, was also on that team.
There was 15 Hall of Fame or something like that in that World Series in 57?
Between the Yankees and the Braves. It was just unbelievable.
I'm just saying, remember the team in Milwaukee that won a championship.
The Brewers won a championship. They just didn't win the ultimate championship. We're going to have on Sean and Kelly next week to talk about this.
I'm excited. I am going to be nice. I think this is outstanding that they're putting it together.
We have to talk them into letting us go to the premiere.
We do have to try and do that, but then I really have to be nice. And I don't know if I'm that professional of a person.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I can't wait.
It's great. I'm excited your team is getting a movie. I can't wait for the 2016 version for the Chicago Cubs, because then we can actually celebrate a winning team. But, good for you. I'm excited.
Your Cubs thing has to come down for next week.
It doesn't, and it won't. It
Fair enough.
definitely will not come down.
It's going to be a fun.
But I tell you what, if
3
you have the
on 1.
greatest teams in history that never won, the Brewers are number 1 on that list.
Yeah, they had 4 players that hit 30 or more home runs on that team.
Yeah, it definitely is. The 82 Brewers are the greatest team that never won, followed by the 69 Cubs. I mean, there's 2 teams right there. In the top 10 has to be the 2003 Cubs, because that was one hell of a team.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, now I made myself sad. We can move on now. We are excited next week to talk about the documentary, you name it, Just a Bit Outside.
Just a Bit Outside, yeah.
It is a good name.
It is a good name. If we do get to go, I'd love to talk to Pete Vukovich about playing the anti-hero in Major League.
Pete Vukovich, I'm
Easy
sorry.
for you to say.
Easy for me to say, is one of my all-time heroes in baseball, just because he used to smoke cigarettes between innings.
So did Gorman Thomas, and he had to play in the center field. So he had to run.
That is the most badass thing on the face of the earth. I've seen clips, and I tried to find it for this show, but I can't find it, of Pete Vukovich literally putting out a cigarette and then going out and striking out the side.
Maybe that's what it was. Almost like a softball team.
It was great. Whatever it was great. I get why they love that team. It's just they didn't win.
The ultimate. Yeah.
But they're going to convince me. I'm excited to have them here. You have to convince a Cub fan who has seen a World Series.
This will be a truly generational conversation.
Because I don't like talking about the 2003 Cubs. That was my team that was there and should have won. And I don't like talking about that.
I know that. But there are other reasons why you don't like talking about it.
Yeah. Moises Alou and Dusty Baker.
Exactly.
They bother me. But you and I have had a great show. As you all know, you cannot have a conversation with your dad without your father getting the last word. So it is all you.
So this is for every father that's out there. Take the time and be truly involved with your kids. I got to see something like this up close and personal over the last few weeks. I've got 2 great grandsons, and they found a couple milkweed plants with little monarch butterfly eggs on them. So they brought them inside. And I got to see this guy over here get involved with the kids, watch them grow, feed them. It was a family adventure. He and Crystal were involved day in and day out with these, and they finally hatched 2 of them last night. 1 hatched this morning, and they got to take them outside and let them loose. And the look on the kids' faces were just unbelievable. And not only did they get to see nature, but they got to see their dad excited for them as they're going through the process. The kids are only small for a very short time. I wasn't there all the time when my kids were small. We had the opportunity when Cassie was small, I was there, but with the boys, not so much. You miss that time, you never can get it back. This guy's been there day in and day out with his boys, and I'm extremely proud of him. And why am I embarrassing him? Because he becomes middle-aged as of this weekend. He turns 35. So happy birthday. Had to get that in, but I had to at least.
You build me up, and then you tell
build you up a
everybody
little bit.
I'm 35.
Yes.
You're an asshole.
Hey,
But,
that's how we
thank
got.
you.
Sports was a thread that got us through a lot of hard times.
It was.
And we had some very hard times.
Hey, my
we
kids
got
don't
through
have
it.
sports. They're not, at least at this point in their lives, they're not huge sports fans. So
They may be later.
I have to admit something. The whole Caterpillar thing was just as exciting for me. They got another one now.
Yeah.
We have another Caterpillar. We are raising it. Another reason, for those of you that don't know, a big reason we're doing it is, I didn't know this. My wife taught me this. My kids taught me this. There's flies out there that are actually killing monarchs. They plant their eggs inside of caterpillars, and it's killing off a lot of monarch butterflies. And so we are taking in eggs to try and kind of be conservationists here, but definitely take time.
And these that hatch so late in the season may actually fly to Mexico.
Yes,
Which
they are going to
blows me
migrate.
away.
These will be caterpillars that are part of that Mexican migration.
No, the caterpillars won't. The
The
butterflies.
butterflies, I'm sorry. These butterflies that just hatched will be.
Anyways, happy birthday.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you, as always, so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.